I think we're live. Hello. If you're joining me live, please just drop a note in the chat and let me know that you're here. I'd like to say hello. There's something I want to talk about today. I want to talk about anxiety. Most of you know I'm a coach, and I've had several conversations just in the last week, 2 weeks, where the topic of conversation has been anxiety. Now, this COVID crisis has triggered a lot of it. It makes things uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen. We end up wrestling with the what ifs. And so I want to talk about anxiety because let me explain it this way. So last week, my daughter, my oldest daughter, walked into my home office with her latest creation. She had made a homemade caramel iced latte from our coffee pot in the kitchen, like the basic one, like not the fancy one with all those pods, right? And she's beaming with pride. And she's sipping on this sweetness and she's describing to me in her excitement how she's excited she'd cracked the recipe code. Just the right amount of syrup and coffee and milk. And she had this whipped cream and chocolate drizzle on top that mimicked the one from the coffee shop down the street. And in her excitement, I noticed something. Her hands were shaky, and so were her feet. So after celebrating with her for a few minutes about finding the perfect ratio, I grinned and I said, I think you're missing one thing. And she looks at me kind of curious. What could be missing from this decadence that she's slurping through the straw? And I said, well, your breakfast. She's wobbly. And that told me that she didn't eat. She's like, oh, yeah. So we walked back to the kitchen together and I made her scrambled eggs and toast. See, we've all been there when the coffee hits our bloodstream and it makes us all jittery. And the answer is we go get something to eat. It seems obvious. Yet when we're faced with jitters of a different kind, we don't know what to do about that anxiety or those jitters. We wrestle with those what ifs and we stir up all kinds of scenarios and umpteenth options of it could go this way or it could go that way. Some of those are good and most of them are bad. And our mind becomes a playground for the worst possible outcomes, and we can quickly spiral into this pit of paralysis. We're captive by uncertainty and frozen in fear. We won't do whatever it is because of what could happen. What hasn't happened has actually trapped us. I remember that day I lost my job and I was facing all of my bills and I was wondering how we were going to pay them. I'm in that situation now where I'm having clients cancel left and right because they can't afford to work with me. It's real. I've walked alongside friends who are experiencing the reality of bankruptcy and looking at whether or not they can keep their small businesses open. Finances are real. Math is real, and it either adds up or it doesn't. And I remember having to get up every single day and tell my kids it was going to be okay. And I remember the moment that God interrupted my anxieties to ask me, Sherilyn, do I still have you? Yeah, it came down to trust. I either trust God or I don't. He's either faithful to his word or he isn't. He either will provide or he won't. So what did I believe? What did he promise? Because until we know what he promises, we can't rely on his word. So let me pose to you that the answer to the anxieties that we're facing right now in this crisis and the answers to how to fix the coffee jitters might really be the same. It's food. Yeah, food. It's just the type of food that's different because Jesus tells us we need our daily bread. He tells us he is the bread of life. God is our source of strength, and we cannot handle any of the anxieties that come in life without the word of God. It sustains us. We can try to do it without God, but just like Our bodies, when we have coffee on an empty stomach, will be wobbly. The answer is the word. We need to know what God says about us, what he says about our current situation, what he says about this crisis, and what it says and what he says about it is found in the word. We can be equipped to handle whatever life throws at us, whether it's a layoff, whether it's a job loss of a different kind, whether we're facing financial issues, whether we're facing health issues, whether we don't know what our purpose is, whether we are looking at a prodigal son or daughter, or whether we're looking at something else that has caused us to get into this situation of anxiety. We got to get into the word, because when we feast on the word, it will sustain us. To our what ifs, God says, I've got you in the palm of my hand. To our anxieties, he says, cast them on me, I'll take them. So we can picture taking what is heavy to us and wearing us down and taking it off and putting it on his shoulders, letting him have it, and trusting that he has got you and he has got me. Can we see the outcome? No, not usually. But what I know is God can. And he has us no matter what. We trade our uncertainty for his certainty. We trade our instability for his stability. We trade our doubts for his dependability. We rest our anxieties on his answer. And we trade our crisis for his character. We trade our jitters for Jesus. It's times like these, in times of crisis, when anxiety can be at an all-time high and we can freeze up. So now is the time to learn what the Word of God says about your circumstances and declare it out loud. And when you feel the what ifs taking over, then the actions you take make a difference, because you can either cause your faith to rise up, sustain you in the crisis, and quiet the anxiety, or you can choose to walk around all jittery and wobbly, letting the unknown eat you up inside. Your actions will decide. Let me encourage you, declare the word. And if you don't know where to get started, use the declarations that I use for myself. You can find them in the link, in the notes, wherever it is, above or below this live. Start there, download the declarations, and set yourself free, because Jesus is the answer to all of our anxieties. See you next time.